Hey everyone, welcome back to Exploring Health Macro to Micro. I'm your host, Parker Condit. If you're watching, you can probably already tell this is a slightly different format already because we're not in the normal studio and Danielle Pellicano is here live in person. So this is going to be another on the floor, but we're actually going to do a race recap from a race we did this past weekend here in Leadville, Colorado. So,
and don't worry, I do have pants on.
Again, without the
Looked
context,
a little deceiving there for a second. I do have shorts on.
without the context of the video, that might be confusing, but
Fair.
anyway, so if you're listening just on audio, I suggest you go watch this on YouTube. So Danielle, I think the easiest place to start is just describing where we are, what race we're doing, and then probably for people who don't know, explaining your sort of professional background to understand why we're sort of across the country racing in a remote area.
Perfect. So Parker and I last season decided like we should have one race a year where we race each other. So I picked Leadville, thinking I would be at an advantage because I've been staying in Aspen for the entire summer here. It is the hardest marathon and half marathon in the country because it starts at 10,000 feet and it climbs all the way to about 13.1 or 13.2 is Mosquito Pass. So it is a gut-wrenching heavy half and full marathon that they offer this month. And then each month they tack on bigger distances and then finishing off the season up here in Leadville with the 100 miler. So I say we go big or we go home, Parker. So that's why I picked Leadville.
Leadville was an interesting choice. I've run a half marathon up here before on the road. Very different experience as we'll end up getting into. But can you just explain like what you do and why there's a bunch of us here in this house?
Absolutely.
Here in Leadville? Yeah.
So I'm a full-time endurance coach. I've been coaching for the last 20 years now, and Leadville has always been a pivotal race for most of my clientele because my business originates out of Minnesota, which Lifetime originates out of. And this has always been a bucket list event. And I built a lot of my endurance coaching around getting people ready for these runs and bike races. So for me, endurance coaching has always been my background. I roster about 30 athletes a year. And I was excited to have Parker a part of us, this team event this weekend. And I think it really is a humbling event. And I think you really grow as an athlete and person to do an event that's this challenging.
So Danielle and I know each other from personal training and coaching back in Colorado, if people don't have that backstory already. But then we did a race. This is the second race that we've done against each other. The first one was in Las Vegas 2 years ago, half marathon. It was a fast race because it was downhill.
Yes.
And we didn't start at exactly the same time. And I saw you at the very end of that race. So I was like, ooh, I knew she started before me. And I thought you were like a minute or two in front of me based on how far as we were coming up to the finish line. I was like, it's going to be close when we check the timing chips, and you beat me by like a minute.
Correct.
And 7 seconds, right? It was annoyingly close. So Danielle had that hanging over my head for the past 2 years.
Correct.
So this was the second race in our sort of interpersonal series. And going into this, I was not particularly confident. For a variety of reasons that we'll get into. But do you want to go over the results now?
Oh, absolutely. Drum roll, please.
So I came in at 3:31:45, I think.
And Coach D came in at 3:37, which puts Parker at a 6-minute lead on Coach D from the beginning. And I think I clipped off 1 minute on my descent, but I knew he had it when I saw him come down Mosquito Pass. I looked at my watch and I'm like, okay, he's got 10 minutes on me right now. And then I started to fly down Mosquito Pass in what would be considered an unsafe descent to others around me. Yeah. But I felt really good about it.
But yeah, we'll end up talking about the descent portion as well.
But we got it. I mean, you got to give a high five to Parker beating Coach D at Leadville in what is one of the hardest races. And I have been at altitude for a month. So all of those factors are really impressive. So great job.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. It was I wanted to say it was a fun race. It wasn't. It was a very, it was a very hard race. I'm happy now that it's over.
100%. Yeah. How do you feel today?
Fine. Like I'm a little sore.
Yeah.
But like wrecked yesterday.
Wrecked.
Absolutely wrecked.
I can contest to that. I saw it.
Yeah. So the race was challenging to say the least. Going into it, knowing that it was going to be at elevation, like I wanted to do a race recap for this video just because there were so many variables. So I was training in Phoenix, which is about 1,000 feet of elevation. It's very hot there at this point. So the elevation was going to be a big variable. And the fact that there's less oxygen for you here, and there's really not a great way to train for that unless you're at elevation. So that was going to be a huge variable. And then also it's the end of June, which is very hot in Phoenix. So my ability to train just tapered off so hard over the past month.
Yes.
I peaked like in the middle of May, probably.
I can see that.
So that was one of the big challenges.
I ruminated about this all night. Don't worry on on these training practices because I too lived in Scottsdale the last time I did this race, which I think was 2019. And I remember being at my most fit as a runner living there. And I had to think about it from the perspective of lots of things. So when you live at altitude, you're clearly at an advantage. You just have had time to acclimate. You're used to that feeling of less oxygen, period.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, this is what I was ruminating about last night. Arizona is a prime state to train as a runner. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about this when we were coming down Mosquito Pass, which is extremely bouldery rock, loose rock, sharp rock. And all I thought about was like Gateway Trail, right?
Very steep.
I realized you can run in Arizona and add miles of that type of training pretty easily, like in a positive way. Mm-hmm. The heat is actually what studies have shown to be the only way you could stress the body to let people feel what it could be like to be at altitude.
Yep.
So that training ground was actually ideal. Whereas being up here, so I'm in Aspen, most of my runs were at 9,000 feet, but everything is immediately up. So you become very proficient at power walking, which helped at Mosquito Pass. We should do a shot every time I say Mosquito Pass. Okay, Parker?
Yeah. We're recording at 8 a.m.
I mean, it's only 8 a.m. I mean, come on. But anyways, why I say that is the difference, I think, of understanding I've been living here. You are able to push a very good, fast power walking pace, which actually was even better than jogging or trying to jog. Mm-hmm. But you can't mimic terrain. So I think, to be fair, Arizona actually speaks more to the landscape of Leadville, Colorado than some of the lower valley. That was just an observation I made yesterday.
Yeah, as I did as little prep and research into this.
I think that was a good
into this
call.
Course as possible. Yeah, I don't think I could have done that race with any prior knowledge of how hard it was going to be. Like I went into it with pure ignorance, and I thought it was going to be. I knew it was a trail race.
Yes,
I thought it was going to be all like Jeep trails and like dirt roads.
I told Parker there was no elevation gain, and don't worry about it. You don't need any hill training. You'll be fine.
So I was training Gateway in Arizona, which is incredibly bouldery.
Yes.
And like that type of running for me, it just takes so much out of my legs.
Correct. So
I'm just getting crushed in 100-degree weather, basically walking the whole time. And like that never feels good from like, am I really pushing performance? Because I'm just walking the whole time.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, well, at least it's going to be like a smoother trail. I'm like, I'm going to pick up time there. It's not going to be as hot. And then we get here. The first 2.5 miles is like a smooth Jeep trail road. And then it's not.
Yes.
For the rest of it.
And I remember saying this. I kind of just black out races I've done in the past, apparently. I'm usually not a repeat offender because there's so much I want to see and do that Leadville is probably the only home base that I've done it multiple times. Their events up here, and because I love to support them. B, it's just an awesome training ground. But yesterday, I kid you not, I do not recall Mosquito Pass being that long.
Yeah,
I literally kept looking up, and I'm like, are those people? I'm like, this is a lot farther than I remember, and that can. It was a slow march for everybody.
Yep.
And whoever could keep the most consistent march probably had the best race yesterday. And I also feel, because we talked about this, I used this race when Scott and us were discussing it yesterday. For any of you who have done Schwamigan, I always use this as a reference. It's a mountain bike race, but it starts in Rosie's Field. So it's a big rollout on a grass knoll, but you all bottleneck to a trailhead.
Yep.
I feel like that would be my coaching tip takeaway yesterday was if you could grind out those first 3 miles and create your position, you pretty much solidified where you were going to stay in that race. Obviously, I didn't know that yesterday, but today, as I think back, even because we were pushing it in the like we were together. Oh, I love this too, by the way, everybody. I told like it was a mile and a half. I go, Parker, I think we should, at this point, we should stay together at a mile and a half. And he goes, well, why don't we just see how things play out? And I'm like, nice, of course. And then after like the second mile, this little spread started. And so now I'm behind him. And anytime he would pick it up a little bit, I'd pick it up a little bit. And then when he would stop, I'd try to go like 5 more seconds and then I would power walk behind him. And I was like, this strategy is totally going to work. And then a descent happened and then it was another power. And then I saw it kind of not working anymore. And that lead was starting to build. And then at Mosquito Pass, I never saw you again till you were coming down. And then I had no gauge, which worked to my advantage. It works both ways if someone's the lead or the tail.
Yep.
For me, I'm like, you cannot stop. Like I wanted to a few times, like for real. I was feeling very lightheaded. But I'm like, no, every little step matters here because Parker might be like doubled over up top. I have no idea.
Yeah, a few times.
Until I see you come down is when I stare at my watch. But I still had no idea that around the bend there was still another push. So that at that point, it was a 10-minute gap at mile 7.5.
Yep.
And so I closed 4 minutes on you, but that was it. I was really proud of you. I think I saw you one more time. I said that last night, but I was like trying to like eagle eye your compression socks. I'm like, is that him? But I couldn't confirm it, so I just stayed where I was at, and it was good.
Yeah, so early on in the race, we were sort of yo-yoing back and forth, and I didn't think that was going to be a good strategy for me.
Yeah,
just like kind of following you.
Of course not. I did it for my own. I want to tether you to me for a minute.
No, not for any reason other than like that way. Like then you're not running your own race
for sure. And I wouldn't. And what's great was anyone listening to us that I've coached are like, you say never to run with your friends. Yeah. It was a strategy, you guys. I could tell Parker had it in him, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to try to hold this guy back as long as possible.
I was regretting how hard I went once we got to Mosquito Pass.
No, that was what did it for you.
Yeah. But the, so to give people listening an idea of what this is, it's a 7.7 mile out and back.
Correct.
And then the first aid station is at like mile 4.5, 4.6. And then the next aid station is at the top. So you have about 3 miles between that aid station. So you just know that going to the top. And you're like, I've been walking so slow for over an hour and I still can't see the top.
I know.
And like then you're climbing through elevation. Like you mentioned it a few times, like how not lightheaded, but
this is the first time I felt that way. I'm going to be honest. It was a true lightheaded, almost euphoric state where I'm like, I didn't feel like I needed to stop, but I was almost like stepping laterally. Like I felt a little off. Let's put it that way.
Did you stop at all?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I stopped many times.
I mean, I told you, my resting position is my hands on my knees. And you never, by the way, want that to be your resting position because everyone will walk by and be like, do you need a medic?
You okay?
You doing all right? I'm like, yeah. I'm great. I'm like, what's the point of resting if you can't put your hands on your knees for a second, kids?
Yeah.
Happened every time though. So it was a good buffer again to get me to keep moving and not to do that.
And again, like not easy terrain to walk up. So it's steep and like really uneven footing.
Yes, yeah. It's unforgiving. And we were talking about this yesterday. I think trail running in general requires a very strong body. You need to train in the element. You have it curbs so many runners because that descent on Mosquito Pass, for example, every stabilizer in your body is working for a solid 30 minutes. That's a long time. And then they gift you with a real flatness, which then your calves usually seize up or your quads after bounding gingerly down Mosquito Pass. It is jarring on the body. And that was the word I would use, where it is taxing. It is not for everyone. You need to train descending often to do well at trail running, in my opinion. You could tiptoe it down, but the descent needs to be where it's the only thing that makes me realize I still enjoy it. I'm like, there has to be some enjoyment here. Oh, good. We're going to run down all of this. Fantastic. Yeah. That is a very rare mentality. I think most are like, wow, this is really treacherous. I have to watch my footing. People were still using their poles on the way down.
Yep.
And that's great too, but that's a long day then. I just look at it that way. I'm like, if you're not able to kind of pick up your gait and look at that as free speed, that's a long day.
Yep.
That would make most of that race unrunnable then, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. And for somebody who's never done a long trail run or trail race like this, I've only ever run road races pretty much where it's like you will maybe walk, or I've done like Spartan races where there's a little bit of walking involved.
Yes.
I probably walked for 2 hours yesterday. Of a 3.5 hour race, I probably walked for 2 hours, if not more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's weird to do and be like, I'm doing well, walking way more than I'm running in a running race.
So here, there was a woman, the woman we started with that was on my left that we were talking to. And she's like, I live here. And we, had probably a 5-minute conversation. She and I ended up together by mile 11.
Okay.
And she had one pace. And I remember her saying, like, because everyone will always be like, good job, as I'm like blowing by them. But then I come to a dead halt and power walk for 30 seconds. Then I almost sprint.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll power walk for 30 seconds on this when we got to like that 11th, 12th mile.
Yep.
I just had to because I went so hard down Mosquito Pass that my legs literally started to seize a little bit. That was lack of sodium or something. So I tried to pop a gel, but we'll get onto that. All of us had a poor nutrition day, meaning we were taking it in, but we were all nauseous.
Yep.
And it happens most times than not at this altitude. It's just challenging. So that seizing or that depletion is almost a gamble, right? So that's why I was doing that as and so this woman comes by and I was like, hey, she's like, oh, you're doing great. I'm like, so are you? She's like, I only have one speed and this is it. She never not lightly jogged.
Yep.
The rest of, I was watching, but what's interesting is I probably beat her by 5 minutes.
Yep.
Just a give or take is going to be my guess. And that was with a fast run, dead halt walk. So everything's different. Yep. You know what I mean? There was no formula for yesterday or in that type of race in general. So it's whatever works for you, where you're just being mindful that you're staying on some type of consistency. So if you're like, I'm going to do that, then your splits need to be like that. Like I would never let myself walk for longer than 30 seconds. And that felt long actually. But my heart rate would come down just enough, which is usually 10 beats, where I'm like, cool. Even if that felt more mental than physical, I'm like, great, you could be running again. Go.
Yep. Yeah. The other thing that was interesting, again, the ignorance of going into this.
I think you were that ignorant. I genuinely didn't want to tell you anything because it was a step up for Coach D.
Yeah, no, it was. Well, I'm glad you did it. Because I
wouldn't have done it if I would have been like, oh, Parker's is the hardest, worst race in the country. Come join me, please.
I was just doing math. I was like, okay, there's 3,000 feet of elevation gain over 7.5 miles.
Yes.
I'm like, there's going to be some ups. There's going to be some downs. But 3,000 feet over 7 miles. I'm like, it can't be that aggressive. It was so aggressive.
So, no, I know. We come around a bend and all like, we're all like looking and we're like, I'm like, oh, like those are people still.
Yep.
Like I thought the summit was where I thought it was. And when I realized it wasn't, it was a bit soul crushing because I did the math and I'm like, if that's wrapping around and those little ants are people that I see, I have at least another half hour. And it was easily. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. I was doing the math not on time because I was like, I didn't look at my watch a lot.
No, you shouldn't.
But I just knew. Like you feel it buzz. So I was like, all right, I knew I'm at mile 6. And I'm like, oh, so another.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's it?
Another 1.7 at this pace. I'm
yes.
like, it's got to be like 40 minutes or so.
Correct.
Just guessing at whatever my slow walking pace was. And that's when I was like, every 30 seconds I was stopping.
Yes.
Yeah, because you just, not like a steep edge, but you kind of step off to the side so people can walk past you. And you're like, I could fall over
I wish there would have been like a halo of light over where you were. Would have been very helpful for me.
Yeah.
And like, Danielle, don't stop here. Just push through this discomfort for another 3 minutes. And you're going to close the gap another minute on him. So I'm just messing around.
Do you want to go over anything else on like the race details? They might come up kind of throughout as we talk about nutrition and stuff like that.
For sure. No, let's just shoot another question off.
All right. Let's talk about fueling pre, during, and post.
Yeah.
I think I failed on definitely post.
Those are not the right words. Nope. This is not a race unless you have been able to come up here and do a true training run. Nope, not even a week. If you could have come up here at this altitude and put in an 8-mile effort, out back 4 miles,
Okay.
and got to play around what that felt like, you probably could have dialed in what was going to be settling to your stomach more. What we also have to preface, because this is such a bigger conversation, all of you guys came in from Minnesota the night before.
Yep.
So half the group was Minnesota. You were Arizona, flatland, flat sea level.
Not here.
Correct. Yeah. That is not wrong. This is something where coaches all have their own opinion. If you could be up here a week prior, great. Most can't do that.
Yep.
So I never let that be a factor that you can't do the race. You're better off flying in just a day before. It's always worked for all of us. It worked yesterday as well. However, you probably all came in a little dehydrated. It's just a fact with travel, and maybe you don't think to drink as much. The altitude and how you can digest calories is just going to be what it's going to be that day.
Yep.
Because we all struggled. We didn't switch anything, but I was very mindful the day before where I was crushing electrolytes, more than I usually do, but to the point where I felt like I wasn't going to the bathroom all the time. It didn't feel like I was just peeing out all of what I'm trying to keep in, to be fair.
Yep.
But yeah, I was really mindful that I was getting at least 100 ounces that day, where every other bottle had electrolytes.
Yep.
I ate frequently on Friday, smaller meals, and was 2 days out really focusing on good carbs and fat. But that's a fuel source that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
The day of, I woke up, I saw you, and you started your feeding window 3 hours before the start time.
Yeah.
Which was very smart, actually. I don't know if it's because of what we had the night before, which was chicken, rice, veggie, or a salad, like all good,
all pretty neutral
choices. Nothing I wouldn't have normally done.
Yeah.
I just felt so bloated and full the next day that for me, I like barely got down those eggs that you made.
Yeah.
And then I had a banana an hour out with some peanut butter, and I still was like, ooh, I don't feel awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Started having some hydration, scratch in a bottle an hour out from the race. And I felt light and good at the start, to be fair, and it was fine. I just think that's something where you can only do your best to try to get in what you can, but you can't, you have to force it a little.
Oh, yeah.
And yesterday felt forced the whole race.
Mm-hmm.
And that is abnormal for me personally. And it seemed to be what all of us experienced.
How many calories do you think you took in during the race?
I filled my bladder with 50 ounces. I emptied that thing at the end of yesterday, and I still had like 15 to 20 ounces in it. Okay. So I probably only did 30 ounces, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was drinking a lot.
Okay.
I had 200 calories in that, and I really like Morton gels. They work for me. It's the gelatin of those gels really work, especially at high altitude like that, because it's not syrupy. It just goes down. They're a hit or miss for people, but the ones that really like them, we love them. I had that at the 40-minute mark, and then I was still feeling weird. So then I had another one, like at 35 minutes in.
Okay.
And then I just had bananas the rest of that race.
Did you bring bananas with you?
No, I thought, plug for Leadville, their aid stations were fantastic. Those were deep in all the things. Mm-hmm. So that is very rare. So that was awesome. And they did a good job letting you know what was going to be there. So that helps with planning. But I think my limiting factor yesterday was actually hydration. And then Mosquito Pass ran out of water. That's okay. It happens. So you couldn't even do that if you wanted to at the top.
Luckily, I probably had 8 ounces left.
Yeah.
So I knew, and it was a descent. So I knew it was all
that
downhill.
You get back down. Correct.
Yeah. So I was like, I've got something to get down to the next aid station. But I was really looking forward to getting some water.
Yeah. So I probably under 400 calories yesterday for 3.5 hour effort, which I probably should have been at 6 is my guess. I don't think it played a total role in my performance, to be fair. I think I was topping off just enough to be okay.
Yeah.
But I never felt like it was like a nitro boost, which I'll be honest with you, usually I'll hit a Morton's and I'm like 10 minutes in after doing it. I'm like, I just, you feel it almost. I didn't feel any of that.
Yeah. I carried 700 calories with me.
Yes.
Took in 4.
Which is, and we said you should have done 6 when we talked in the morning. So you did well.
But like, again, all of it was forced.
Correct.
It was just like at certain time intervals, it's like, I know I haven't consumed anything for a while.
Yes.
My body probably needs something. It felt horrible.
Yep.
every single time. Like the gels, I did goo gels.
Yes.
Just going in. That's when I probably drank most of my water, just so I could like
Correct.
slurp them down. And
I
then
did have a piece of bacon. And
one of
normally I'd be like,
bacon.
that'd be like
did they
giving
have
Coach
quesadillas?
D like a T-bone steak. I'd be like, yes. That's how unwell I felt. Like nothing sounded good.
Yep.
And the guy's like, bacon, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, tortilla wrap. I'm like, I'll take a piece of bacon. Still helps.
Mhm.
But that was just like biting. It felt like chewing on jerky. I was like, I don't know. Yeah, I was striking out a little bit, but it's all good. But I never looked depleted. Like this is us giving you like the internals of how we felt, but from an external perspective. And I'll post videos on my recap reel. We looked damn good coming down Mosquito Pass, like at miles 8, 9, 10. Like we had a solid race. We crossed the finish line strong. Like I never felt like I appeared slow or like today's not the day. I internally though felt like this is real hard. That was and I expected it. So no, I think we did great.
I mean, like going up Mosquito Pass, I'm like, if there were a reasonable way to stop right now, I would. But it's like, it's just the entire way back. So I'm like, you might as well just go up and just go back down.
Yeah, because that view was, no one's going to see that view.
It was beautiful. That's what I was trying to focus on the whole time. I'm like, I feel horrible, but what a pretty view.
I'll say it's been unseasonable weather across the country this summer. This day yesterday for Leadville was one of the prettiest days I have ever raced up here.
Yeah.
The temperature at the start was awesome.
Yeah.
It was cloud coverage when you needed it for 3-4 miles. To get the sun to peek out as you are ascending Mosquito Pass, to have that view of that valley is unbelievable. I've never seen it like that. So those things do carry you through a race. They have to.
Yep.
For sure. Because people ask us all the time, like, why would you, where do you find the joy in these things? I'm like, I always find the joy in them. Oh, you know what really makes me happy is when we wake up the next day, I'm like, oh, I feel good. Like if I was like, Parker, we're going to do a 3-mile shakeout, you'd be like, cool.
I could run today.
1000%.
I don't want to, but
well, me neither. I mean, look at us. We're already ready for the day.
Exactly. I will say on the fueling side, I ate a lot. I had 2 bagels, so that was 500 some calories.
In the morning.
Yeah, with butter. So it was probably close to 700. And then 2 bananas and some eggs. So I probably close to 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
But like bigger body, so I know I need it. And that's the one thing I did find, because I've never run seriously enough to like take my nutrition that seriously. But I had to start doing it this year, training for this earlier on, like going out for those long runs where I was like, oh, if I actually have a bagel and a banana before I run, I feel a lot better.
Of course. Yeah. And I think we also have complicated things. Let's be real. You find foods that fuel you. You try to make good choices. Like when you walked in with like your textbook white bagels, I was like, they're not gluten-free. What is going on here? No. Kidding. Like, are you drinking? I had one this morning. I'm like, delicious. Yeah. It's substance, period. And as a coach, because we've complicated it, and I'm not saying all of these newer studies aren't great. Everything doesn't have to be so square and so extreme.
Yep.
Like everyone doesn't have to be gluten-free athletes or vegan runners now. I'm just being very honest.
Yep.
You burn so much, you have to pay attention if you're looking from a weight loss standpoint to lean out for a race. This is like more elite conversation, but you have a running goal, a weight you like to be at when you feel your best. That's where numbers matter. The source of your food, we as coaches always try to encourage you to choose smart foods, but I give my people a lot of autonomy there because I'm not going to meal plan for you because everyone has become very fickle in what they can have.
Sure.
And I'll be honest, right? It matters that you understand what you require, and that is a huge part of your training. You need to be mindful of it. You need to practice it. So the biggest thing I think with my runners is like when you go out and do your longer runs on the weekend, you need to practice how you're going to play. You need to purchase your nutrition. You need to practice your nutrition. Even if you're like, oh, but this is a shorter run, I'm only out here 2 hours. Anything that exceeds 45 minutes needs to start having a caloric intake replenishment. And you need to start working on those things. And if you're someone that cramps all the time, like you can't, it's not going to fix itself as you get closer to race day.
Yeah.
So those things should be and need to be dialed in well before that race comes too. That's why yesterday was surprising to all of us because we were all on those things, but all of us were just the altitude, kind of won. I think it was really hot. This was hot for Leadville.
It finished hot.
To be in, and for Scott and the guys that did the marathon, to be in full sun for the majority of that race, that is where hydration, I don't even know if you could have stayed ahead. But everyone looked good. Like, I never saw a lot of people out there that were really struggling.
No, I didn't see any like carnage.
No.
Which is surprising.
For that race, for sure.
I mean, I guess it probably self-selects a certain type of athlete to this kind
I
of
remember
race.
we're in the corral about to start, and I look at Parker, I'm like, these are my people. And I do, I mean it. I look around, like, that energy is so different and so contagious that it makes me smile. And it also calms me because you're like, we're just a different breed. Like, the amount of sacrifice you make to show up for things like this, just from a training perspective, this is your vacation time. It's a funky town. Mm-hmm. Let's be real. It is. It's just so, everything about it's unique, but everyone is just, they're just cool people. And it's just a really neat environment the whole weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Leadville is like an old mining town, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And it's like 2 hours from Aspen. It's 2 hours from Denver. It's like nothing's close to it.
No.
Very remote.
It's awesome.
Do you want to talk about your training leading up to this?
Yes. Oh, you know what was a real win yesterday? When my watch beeped, it said that my performance score was a +4. Oh, good. I was like, I have no excuses not to bury Parker in this race today. But in all fairness, I felt very rested coming into the race. I felt definitely under-volumed, but this is something I have been saying my entire career because I prioritize my coaching and my athletes more than my own training. Yep. That is not me making excuses. I think yesterday was a fantastic race. I did very well. I was very happy with how I placed. My takeaway yesterday was I have done very little anaerobic zone 4 since I've gotten to the Valley. So this past month has been a lot of zone 2 big efforts, but nothing high heart rate for longer periods of time. And I realized that was definitely a missing element for me yesterday. Totally fine. And that is where I, as an athlete, have always been able to positively have self-talk and reflection during races. I don't beat myself up over it. I accept what I was prepared to do. And yesterday I executed exactly where my fitness was at. Is that make sense? Mm-hmm. High altitude training like this and that power walking, it required me to have been more comfortable in the upper 160s, lower 170s. And I have not been training in those 170s, even like max heart rate for me now is like a 182, I think, or something, right? And that's okay. Like, typically I would get that on the bike, and I've just gone back to cycling a couple weeks ago. So I feel like this was a very, very well-placed race for me to have a boost in how the remainder of my summer will go for other races. I'm thrilled that my body feels good. So from a strength perspective, I've been really focusing on getting my body back after my rib injury. So I've had to prioritize the foundation, and that brings us full circle to what I am saying on mosquito passings like that. I needed to be strong. So I've been working more on getting those things back. I will always be able to mentally push myself in a discomfort in races because I've been doing it my whole life.
Right. How much strength training, or like, let's talk about like weekly volume, if you want to talk about that. Do you know like roughly how many miles you were doing a week?
My peak weeks were no more than 30.
Okay.
For a race like this to have been faster, because I was, in my opinion, capable of doing like a 3 hour. I probably could have shaved 30 minutes, which people are like, no, I for sure could have if I had been building out way more volume. And that would have been like a standard week. A low week would have been 30. Normal weeks for this race should have been 45, 50 miles. Or not even to say that. That's why I asked you, because you did a good job making your long run. That's why I was asking you. I'm like, well, what was the time on your longest? I didn't care about the distance. You're like 2.5 hours. I'm like, great. I should have exceeded at least a 4-hour effort to just understand. Do you know what I mean? Just to that. Those are the takeaways where that's fine. My consistent long runs on the weekends were only 2.5 hours.
Yep.
And look at yesterday. I mean, yesterday was a 3.5 hour race. So for
Mhm.
me to have exceeded that distance would have been my protocol. I don't typically train a lot of my people that way because you gamble with injury
Yep.
and fatigue at the start for them then. So that's all I'm going to say there.
Yeah. I guess as we were going, any race that I'm going into,
Yes.
my strength is always going to be my strength.
Yes.
Right. I'm a bigger person. I'm like 190.
Yep.
And I don't think I did 30 miles at all.
Okay.
Maybe in the middle of May, I hit it. It was
Yes.
like a higher volume week and then like a 13-mile long run on the weekend. So I was like, at the very least, I'm going to have strong legs that are going to have to carry me throughout
Absolutely.
this.
Yes.
But I did a lot of strength training, especially leading up to probably June, the beginning of June. I was doing like heavy squats two times a week.
Mhm.
And then I did really long sets of alternating step ups. Like I would just do 20,
Yes, 100%.
yeah, like 20, 30 minutes at a time.
Awesome.
Like, from a strength training perspective, that's basically all I did for my lower body. It was just those two things.
And what's so funny, how old are you?
35.
Okay. I knew it. I just want to get it on recording because no, this is important. So I'm 44, and I will say what's becoming a recurring discomfort is a post-tib issue.
Mhm.
And most listeners that are in their 40s, women that are runners, it's I don't know if it's wear and tear, in my opinion. I've had to shift my mindset. I lift compound movements heavy,
Yep.
but I have to do a ton of stabilizer, band, ankle, peroneal, like almost before I run now as a primer.
Yep.
And I have to do plyometrics. So I've reincorporated jump roping,
Mhm.
box jumps, landing. It's just the shift it's how I always enjoyed working out, but it was different. Now it's like
A necessity.
1000%.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to be like you used to jump, but it's so important. And that, in my opinion, is I need to be building strength from the ground up. And I felt that yesterday. Like I woke up today with no post-tib issue. I'm so grateful. And it's something that can curb you as a runner, period.
Yep.
And obviously there might be an instability, et cetera, all those things. But for me, I'm like, no, you just go into really hard things and you always expect your body to respond.
Yep.
There's a point where you have to be a little smarter. And so I've been in that arena for a while too.
Yeah. I was thinking about, as we were coming down Mosquito Pass, kind of bounding down the mountain. So when you're running downhill,
yes,
or when you're sprinting, it's approximately at a maximum sprint, it's approximately 7x body weight per footfall, which is, so like, just think about that for a second, where you're like, oh, I do calf raises with 145 pounds on the bar. Be like, well, your body weight alone is probably more than that, and then each footfall is a multiple of that. So like depth jumps are a great way to like, so I was just thinking about like, as we're, you try to keep the mind occupied when you're coming down the mountain, like don't slip, but also, from a training perspective, how would this work? Finding ways to like mimic the very extreme amount of weight that's landing on each footfall in a not safe position.
Correct.
So yeah, I was thinking about depth jumps a lot on the way down yesterday.
And I made a comment, like you had two body types out there yesterday. You had our bodies, and like I'm a bigger runner too, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not from a weight, from an aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm all legs really, but they're bigger than most runners. There were a lot of women, like they're strong, man. I was looking around like, this is awesome.
Yep.
Dudes like you, like I always call them gladiators. I love it, but like built men, running, and I love it.
I usually call them like skinny boys. There were not a ton of skinny boys out there,
but that was my other. So it was like you had us, and then you had your lean machines, and I call them the Billy Goats, not because they're slow, by the way. It's because they never stop.
Yeah,
and they're not walking either, by the way. They're jogging, and this goes for the women and the men. So you had lean.
Yep.
Gracefully, it didn't even look like their feet touched the ground. And then you had us, and there wasn't too much in the middle.
Yep.
And it was really cool to see.
Yeah. For reference, so our times for the half were like 3:30, 3:35. The guy who won did it in 1:52. And
Thanks a lot.
The guy who won the full did it in 3:57.
Hold on, but I'm going to put this in perspective. Parker and I did this last night. Parker and I finished in the 28th percentile of time yesterday.
Yeah, it was pretty
That's legit.
Mhm.
For the women, I was in the 18th. I didn't look up you for the men, but I looked at us as our overall placement in the entire race, and we finished in the upper 28th percentile. Like, that's freaking great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's good. It's a great day.
Very happy with that.
And those are things I do look at because finishing, every factor is different. Like, you try to reflect on previous times from previous years. I've learned that you can use that as a benchmark a little, but it could have been freezing last year. It could have been snow topped at Mesquite. There's so many factors that could change overall times.
Yep.
So that's why I'm not saying I try not to compare myself to my former self. I used that as an example earlier just to set a foundation of things as a runner, but that matters. You age, period. It's part of the process. It's awesome if you're still out here, still performing, but it is fun to see how you are lining up amongst your peers and the overall field. So for us to come in the 28th percentile in the overall field, I think it's a really great day.
Yeah. And on a hard race.
Yes.
One of the things that I do on long runs is, like, once I get past an hour, I try to think and visualize like what's happening from a physiological.
So you didn't listen to music?
Not yesterday.
That's my boy.
So
I don't either, ever.
I will say this.
Proud of you.
I'm gonna give everyone context on like how the race finishes. So it's 2.5 miles down.
Yeah.
Downhill. So it's a nice cruise into the finish line. But at that point, like, running on flat ground, I couldn't even do for more than a minute.
Correct.
Just because I was like so trashed. Like, we got down from Mosquito Pass and like we got to flat ground. It's like, I need to walk.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't have the mountain pushing me down. So that's kind of where I was. I also know that Danielle is excellent at descending.
Thank you.
And I didn't know where she was.
Correct.
I knew approximately, I had her at like 8 minutes behind me when I passed her on the way down. But again, like, I know you descend really well, and I was trying to descend quickly, but I was like, I had to end up walking at some points, and I was like, she might be running right now.
Yeah.
So the last 2.5 miles into town, I was just looking over my shoulder because you were dressed in all black and a red vest. So I was like, I knew I'd be able to identify you. At least I thought I'd be able to.
Yeah.
So I lost many places because I would like look back and see you went there. I'd be like, I want to walk for 10 seconds.
I gave it my all. You won fair and square yesterday. Like, you owned that 6-minute margin, period. Like, I never let up or felt like I was running less. I ran strong. There was no, I know what you're referring to. My lower half wasn't going to support anything sub like 7, which was very doable on a street descent for me, easy, but it was too much of a gamble because my legs were starting to seize, man.
Yeah, I was also like,
and that's the beauty of racing, though. Like, I still was going very fast compared to everyone around me, but I'm like, I can't close. That would have been what I'm going to put it in perspective. I would have literally had to gone from like a 7:45 split, which is what I was doing towards the end, to a 5:30 to have closed that margin. That was not happening.
Yeah, like, I didn't know.
That was not happening.
I didn't know if you were 6 minutes behind me or
oh, yeah, very much so.
Or 2 minutes.
No, that was to your advantage.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love when you were like, oh my God, I hate being chased.
It was only that last little bit. But yeah, at some point I pulled out my phone. I was like, I'm going to put on some music. When I thought I was good, I was like, I'm going to need something to take me home for the last like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I tried, but I was so tired. I was like, just trying to find something on my phone. I was like, it wasn't in like my liked songs. I was like, forget it.
I never use music. I like to see and hear and take all of the racing in.
Yeah.
But that is a huge advantage. Like, it's not wrong because it's a conversation we have all the time about thoughts on music. I'm never going to say don't do it. If that's how you train and that's what gets you through, absolutely. It's just, like, I would have loved like a Nicki Minaj song to come in on at the last mile. Don't get me wrong. I would have been like, come on, Danielle, just grind it.
Yeah.
Let's go. But no, like, I have some of my clearest thoughts and thinking on races.
Yeah, I totally get that. So what I was going to say was, on longer runs, the thing, you can think of whatever you need to. You can distract yourself in those runs. I tend to think of I try to visualize the physiologic change that's happening in my legs.
Smart.
I'm like, okay, so I'm creating more capillary density at this point.
I love your mind.
So
of course it is.
If you just think of a river, like a vein as a river that's kind of running through your quad.
Yes.
And then you get these the adaptation you get is more tributaries. So the more tributaries you get and build, the more blood, which is oxygenated, can go to more of the tissue. So that's the type of thing that I think about.
I adore you. I'm looking at you with awe right now. Of course, that's what you think.
But yesterday, going up Mosquito Pass, I had a flip switch.
Yes.
Or a switch flip around probably around the 7 mile mark. So it was less than a mile to the top.
Yeah.
Which it levels out a little bit, but I was I have not been focusing on my breathing at all.
Oh.
This whole time.
Okay.
And I was I was feeling my hamstrings a lot at that point. And at that point, I was trying to use more of my quads just to give my hamstrings any sort of break. But I was they're starving for oxygen right now. And from that point on, throughout the rest of the race, I was I probably had 10 minutes where I wasn't really deliberately focusing on my breathing, where I was really heavily inhaling through my nose, doing double inhales through my nose, and then kind of a softer exhale. I'm it wasn't the clearance that was the issue, but 2 minutes into doing that, I was my legs felt way better. And I almost felt immediately, as I was breathing, I was my legs, the stress in my hamstrings was gone. I was
there's a mindfulness that comes to the sport.
I was I feel I'm pulling oxygen to the tissues I need.
It's not, that's a real thing.
Yep.
That's also why I'm also don't tune out your race.
Yep. That's why I want to bring
That's why I will say this, and people that have trained with me back, in any gym setting, I do not let you train with music in a gym setting. I prefer that you just didn't train with it at all. But I've had to not be that much of a naysayer. I have no clients. But no, you need to hear your gait. You need to hear your breathing at times, especially if you are new to running or you are struggling with something that is a chronic injury or something that keeps presenting itself.
Yep.
You have to be very present. So everything you're saying is very true. It's not just voodoo. It's it's being it's mindful running.
Yep.
I yesterday never felt like my body was not able to sustain the terrain at all till the flat out at Mosquito, like you said, where that flat mile was probably where I could have gained on you in hindsight.
Yep.
Knowing strategy, right? But I too didn't have that next, I lit all my matches pretty much. I was no, you need to walk, and then let's power walk again up that other mile at 10.
Yep.
But anyways,
no,
my issue yesterday is I felt real tightness in my chest that I've never felt. That hydration vest felt like it was suffocating me. And that is somewhat mental, but I had to take the strap almost completely off. So I had nothing binding me. And that was a first. So for me, it was very heart rate driven race.
Okay. Do you want to talk about gear?
Yes. I was so impressed to see that Parker showed up not in slippers with his laces untied. That was a humongous step yesterday, watching you lace up actual running shoes.
They're cross trainers.
Well, don't let them know that. You wouldn't know that unless you really look closely.
Yeah.
Still a step up.
Yeah.
And they're not Hokas.
If anyone wants to look these up, the first race we did together, I ran in the shoes that I'd worn for years. I wore them for training, everything, but never tied them. They're Innovate F-Lite 195s.
Please say that again and slow it down. This is a road half marathon, one of the fastest in Vegas, and Parker legitimately full laces, never tied them. I actually don't know how your shoes stayed on your feet.
I just worn them for so long. I knew exactly how they felt.
Yes.
And I was way more comfortable running.
That's just...
It's how I trained.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the only time I think I tied them was for if I knew I was going to do something where I could physically jump out of my shoes. But it's I knew...
Which was when we actually did the gateway, I think, that day. And I think that was the turning point where you're I actually think I need new shoes.
They're also very thin. So if anyone wants
They're
to look
just
these up,
terrible.
they're called F.
Don't say it because they're not maybe bad shoes. They're just that for what you were using them for.
I don't think they make them anymore. They're Innovate F-Lite 195s, and 195 is for grams. So there's like nothing to these things.
Slippers.
Yeah, I was wearing slippers. But yeah, so I wore actual shoes this time.
No, you looked legit. I was like, no, you were ready.
Got that. I bought a running vest.
Yes, you did.
I had the things on the front.
Correct.
Just because I wanted the weight on the front. I didn't want to have a bladder in the back, and rocking the Garmin watch. I've had the same Garmin. Ooh, what's it called? Forerunner.
Please agree that Garmin is superior. You have to have a Garmin watch.
I've had it for 10 years.
That makes it superior.
And it's awesome.
Yes.
It doesn't give me like a training score or anything like that. Because
it will when you upgrade. Baby steps. The shoes were first.
Why would I upgrade when it's still
because you're a runner now, Parker. You need the latest software.
I do one race every 2 years.
Well, we might have to change that. Anyways, and then here's what was interesting. Parker's a little burnt today. Parker did apply sunscreen or not?
I did, but I sweat it all off.
I mean, you look like you have a golfer
I'm not
forehead
sure if you
today.
can tell where my headband was.
Oh no, you absolutely can. You very much can. You're still very handsome, but you got the golfer forehead.
Yep.
And your neck, the back of your neck is just burnt.
Yeah.
So no sunglasses, no hat.
Correct.
It's all personal preference. I rolled yesterday without a hat, probably the first time in a very long time. And I will say, I don't know if I would do that again. So starting from the floor up, I love Nike Pegasus for life over here. I love their trail shoe. It has a really good grip, but it's a pretty it has made me have strong feet. Let's put it that way. I feel good in them. They give me enough stability, but it's a pretty relaxed shoe.
Yep.
I went with Vuori running tights. Still love them. And here's a big reason. I will either go with a long jam short, we'll call it, because I chafe. So I cannot have my thighs exposed. Like they burn. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. I can only put so much Aquaphor on them to like hope that it keeps it at bay. But I'm a big fan of like the full legging at this point. Yep. It also offers a little compression, keeps you warm, etc. I went with a dry fit craft long sleeve, and that was perfect. I try now to cover myself as much as I can in anything that's long distance with sun. A lot of that might be age, to be fair, because most of those girls out there were like in pretty much booty shorts and a tank top. Yep. How you can wear a tank top with a hydration vest with your skin exposed, I'll never know, because I literally have to lather myself up. Like I missed a spot on my back and under my bra here. It's like raw. And guess what? That's that little thing that was bothering me the whole race on my back, because I'm sitting there and I'm constantly like trying to like readjust where that strap, you know, but it's your hydration vest against your shirt, against the bra. It is what it is. It's fine. But you're like burning down to the skin on those things. So my takeaway is I didn't put enough Aquaphor on everything. I do put Aquaphor on my feet, and I don't put a ton, but I've always put it on the balls of my foot, between my toes, and a little on my heel. I would like to say I pride myself on having really nice feet for a runner. and a part of that is because A, I want really nice feet still, but B, I don't get blisters, and I typically keep all my toenails and all the things. Like it gives you, it actually matters. So that's a nice tip for all of you runners. I like the Solomon hydration vests. I think they do a really good job. I will say this, hydration vests are size specific. Yeah. You need to try it on. You can order it online, but you will be shocked when you actually find one that fits you. I speak more again to women on this based on your breast size, etc. Where that hits you matters. Most women can't do bladders in the front if they're bigger chested. So having just the bladder on the back matters, but that changes the kind of vest that you have. So you need them to be very fitted around your frame. Otherwise, that could be just a nuance that isn't necessary. So that can feel like really heavy by the ends. Like I felt like I had a lot on me yesterday at the end. I was just wanting that off. Rolled with the new Oakley sunglasses. I liked them. They were required almost once I got to the top, because I realized I was squinting so much. It was giving me a headache. Had I had a hat on, maybe it would have been different. I don't know why I didn't do the no hat yesterday. I don't know. Maybe I just wanted to roll with something different, but I would probably have gone with the hat over the sunglass. Typically, I don't do the combo, so I don't know. Everyone's different.
So I guess I'll just do ground up. The shoes were Saucony men's Freedom 5. I think that's what they're called. Something close to that. I wore smart wool compression socks, which I wear for any sort of long run.
Yeah.
10,000 shorts, with a liner. It's just the same short I've trained in for the past 2 years. So just something I'm very comfortable with.
Yeah.
Garmin watch, Garmin heart rate monitor, chest strap, and a Nike dry fit running long sleeve shirt. Headband, no sunglasses. I never run in sunglasses, never run in a hat, so just didn't want to change anything.
No, for sure. I roll with the Garmin Phoenix watch. It's important. Love it. And I'm really a big fan of Bomba socks.
Okay.
Your sock wear matters as well.
I wore 2 socks.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I always do that because I never train in compression socks,
Okay.
but they're thinner.
Oh, wow.
I
did not know that.
I train in thicker Smartwool socks normally,
Okay.
and I put on the compression socks yesterday. I was like, and slipped it into my shoe. I'm like, nope, too thin. So just put on a pair of socks on top of that.
Oh, wow. No blisters.
No, because I wanted the same thickness.
No, I get it.
Like-
I get the logic.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And you have to have chapstick.
I did not have chapstick.
I know. That's why you're burnt and I'm not. Like,
your racecraft is admittedly much better than mine.
it's because I don't want to look 1,000 years old before I'm 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. These sports that I choose don't exactly age us gracefully if you don't do it the right way. So yeah, skincare is very important at this point. But yes, that would have been like an Achilles heel had I not had chapstick. That would have been bad. Like that is a horrible feeling in my opinion. One, because you're just depleted. Let's be real.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it kind of comes out through your mouth, and there actually is a lot to that.
Yes.
You get dehydrated faster mouth breathing than you do nasal breathing.
Yes.
So as much as you can, trying to keep your mouth closed.
That was not happening yesterday.
Yeah, I think we were. I think we started. I walked for the first time 2 minutes in.
You have to. You're going right up. Your heart rate skyrockets. Everyone's Billy Goating it. We did better than you think on that. We hung in our pack. I mean, we started in the silver. Our finishing time yesterday was still in the silver.
Mm-hmm.
That was the second corral out of 5 deep.
Yep.
That's legit. So I'm going to keep bringing that back to how well we did because we
Yep.
did really well. I wish I would have dropped your ass and never looked back and just buried myself for the first 3 miles is my takeaway and just power walk the rest if I had to.
If you had done that, I probably would have taken out my phone, put on some nice music, and be like, we're just going to enjoy the rest of today.
No, yesterday was your day. I'm glad. I told Parker, my mother, when I was done, asked, she's always like, how was the race? Great. Well, but how did Parker do? Did he beat you? I'm like, he did. She goes, I'm glad. I was really rooting for him.
I had a few people in my corner yesterday.
Yeah, you did. It was great.
Yeah, so we're tied up in the race series. I think we're going to pause it right here, see if there's any questions from the other racers.
Oh, good.
And then we can possibly just wrap it
Wow,
up.
they've been real quiet.
Yeah.
Oh, I love positive self-talk. Yeah.
Okay, and then trying to make it in a true on-the-floor fashion, we'll take a few questions. One of them was, what do you tell yourself when it's getting really hard out there? Like, what is the inner dialogue that keeps you going or doesn't, I guess? It can really go either way. So this is more your domain in, like, you have to deal with so much of this from the coaching side and, like, kind of prepping people leading up to it to help with that. But I guess you can talk to it from a coaching perspective.
Oh, I could do a whole podcast
personally.
on this question.
Yeah.
I wish people had more positive self-talk when things are getting challenging. I think it comes with putting yourself in that environment more often because it is also the brain is a muscle. It requires it to be fatigued and trained and challenged.
Yep.
And you have to put yourself in enough positions from a training perspective to start to hopefully overcome. But here's why. Positive self-talk is going to come from positive result. If you have good training days and races, you're already having success. You should be drawing on that success in future races and positions you're putting yourself in that aren't ideal. Yesterday, I don't want to use myself because people are like, well, obviously your ego's strong. I'm like, you have to have ego in this sport. I hope you have an ego. That's not a bad thing as long as you keep it in check. But that ego should be a positive self-talk that sits on your shoulder thinking like, wow, look around you. You are a 1%er today in the US. That is for sure. That is a very unique race to voluntarily sign up for and train for and be at the it's the highest race in the country. You can't not look at yourself and be extremely proud, excited, and feel privileged to even be able to be in an event like that.
Totally.
So if those are not self-reflections that you're having, part of me thinks you are doing it for the wrong reason. And I know it's a very bold statement, but it's true. So as you age in the sport, and I said this to Scott, he's 60. He had a great marathon yesterday. He's 60. I'm not saying he's old, but that is a legit athlete who's aging in a very hard sport. He pretty much had tears yesterday when he finished of gratitude and excitement. That is what I'm saying. Like, that is something that just, it's not like it just happens or it doesn't. You have to have that conversation with yourself in those moments where you want it to be negative, and that's where you start flipping the conversation. And you need to start learning to do that for yourself.
You touched on a lot of the good points. I'll just kind of go into what I was thinking yesterday, which was I knew I went out hard. And we briefly touched on this earlier, where I was like, I really wanted to run my own race, where I knew I was going so much by feel of like, I think I'm just going to be able to ride this line today of like pushing hard. And there were a few times where I was like, it might have been too hard. But it's in those moments where I'm like, look around. It's beautiful. Take your phone out. Take a photo of this. There's no reason in kind of like burying yourself mentally of like how hard it is when you can just look around and be like, we're in this beautiful place. Also, everyone else there, I'm like, they're just going. I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it too, right? They're just going to continue going up the mountain. I'm like, I can do it too.
It's also an endurance is longevity. It's not the definition, but it's what I'm saying in this context. If you have self-doubt within the first 10 minutes of a race that you know is going to be at least 2 to 3 to 4 hours, you need to realize you're like, this too shall pass.
That was the other thing.
It will pass.
We didn't know how long it was going to be.
No, but I'm saying, yes, you knew that you were going to be out there at least 3 hours. That is not a short race.
Yeah.
You can't be telling yourself within the first 30 minutes, today's not my day. Because everyone's going to say it for a second. It's your day. You need to walk because you need to, because you know you're going to be out there for a long time. You're going to hit your stride. As you age, your stride comes a little later. Scott and I were talking about that. I start feeling good about 45 minutes into a race or run these days. 45 minutes. I don't feel great until I even hit that point. Some people, that is their run for the day.
Right.
Do you know what? But it's different. And that is getting pushed out as I keep getting older.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So those are the things that you learn about yourself. It's no different than a triathlete of mine in the water. And before they even get to the first buoy, they're like, I'm going to drown. Today's not my day. I'm never going to make this race. No, you need to calm yourself. You need to get around the first buoy. You need to settle in, but you will figure out how that works. But you have to learn to find where you settle. Because then it's like a flip. And then you're like, okay, this is going to be a good day. And maybe sometimes it isn't your day. I'm serious. I'm not going to be completely naive. Some days you're like, yeah, everything went to shit. You didn't get good sleep. You don't feel well, all the things. Then you know what? That's going to happen. But I'm sure you're going to learn something about that. And you'll use it for future training. It's not always going to be that way.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add on that, I think there's another question coming
Great.
up, is like focus on what's in your control, right?
Correct.
So that's like, that was the point where I was really not in a great place. I was like, why focus and train so much breath work if you're not going to use it now?
Correct.
And I was like, okay. And then I spent the rest of the race just so focused on like, draw in that oxygen.
Yes.
You need so much oxygen. Like, make that your focus. Yeah, things are going to hurt. Focus on that. You can control that.
Yes.
Is this race only accessible for top tier athletes?
No. You are top tiered when you show up on that line, though. You are real fit. So I would say the Leadville as a whole series is not something you can take lightly. That is also why I never let any of my athletes think less of their accomplishment, because it's a huge accomplishment, regardless of your time or whatnot. To be able to get up here and perform in a run or bike event at Leadville, you are you are elite in a lot of areas. Do I think this is somewhat? No, I'm okay saying it. Do I think this is a race that just anyone can do? No, I don't. Why are you laughing?
No, because
I'm fine being matter of fact. I'm pretty matter of fact. I
Yeah.
don't, because I think you need to take this race seriously. You need to prep for it, and you have to dedicate a lot of time. If you're an 18-year-old and you want to do a couch to this because you live here, and that's a different conversation. For the majority of people, yeah, I think this is something that you work up to, but I don't necessarily think this is like your first race bucket list. That's my perspective.
what would be a good, if somebody's never done a half before,
Mhm.
would be one be like, this would be a good prep half for you, and then this one.
A good first half is any race that you are going to be able to work on all the things successfully. That scares you a little bit, but is within your wheelhouse to achieve it and keep you motivated to finish it. When people pick goals that are, in my opinion, a little bit too big out of the gate, there's very little joy that comes with the training because there's always self-doubt.
Yep.
And that's just not a place that I want people to train at. So that's probably a better way to have answered that question. It shouldn't be something that out of the gate you're like, am I going to be ready? No, you will always be ready if you do the things right. Pre-training races leading up to bigger races are necessary.
Right.
So your hometown anything is always a good one. Wherever you can have a crowd and a support system would typically be the race I'd pick.
Yeah. It's confidence built on demonstrated performance.
Correct.
Yep. That's a good way to put it.
I love how you can sum up something I say for 7 minutes in like four words.
Also, I don't think the question actually is going to get picked up.
What do you mean?
She just said it to us.
Okay.
The question was,
Oh, I see. Okay.
we'll do a Chiron on the screen or something.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Yeah. So this has been our Leadville race recap. We're going to record another episode, not from this location, but while we're physically together. So we'll end up doing another on the floor. They'll come out probably a month from when this one's released.
Perfect.
You have any closing thoughts?
I think it was an awesome day yesterday, and I love when we get to spend time together.
Yeah. This is very fun.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Hey everyone, that's all for today's show. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and watching, especially if you've made it all the way to this point. If you'd like to be notified when new episodes are going to be released, feel free to subscribe and make sure you hit the bell button as well. To learn more about today's guest, feel free to look in the description. You can also visit the podcast website, which is exploringhealthpodcast.com. That website will also be linked in the description. As always, likes, shares, comments are a huge help to me and to this channel and to the show. So any of that you can do, I would really appreciate. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.